Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to be breaking down some statements that have come from John Boyega in regards to his experience with Disney and the Star Wars sequel trilogy. Now, John Boyega recently has been very vocal in his criticism of the way Disney handled both the production on the films as well as the PR with the films and their characters, as well as his character in general. And he's been vocal on this, actually, well, somewhat vocal, I should say, even towards the release of Rise of Skywalker. And this is going to be something very interesting because I don't disagree necessarily with what he's saying, but I don't necessarily think I get to the same. I would attribute it to the same reasons. Now I'm going to read a quote by John Boyega that he gave, and this is kind of just in terms of how he thinks Disney has handled certain things. What I would say to Disney is do not bring out a black character, market them to be much more important in the franchise than they are, and then have them pushed to the side. It's not good. I'll say it straight up. You knew what to do with these other people, but then it came to Kelly Marie Tran. When it came to John Boyega, fuck all. So what do you want me to say? What they want you to say is, I enjoyed being a part of it. It was a great experience. No. I'll take that deal when it's a great experience. Now, here's the thing. I don't doubt that it was a bad experience for him, both as an actor and probably on a personal level as well. What Disney did from a story perspective of Star Wars was not good. And unfortunately, he was at the center of that. Now, John Boyega also kind of attributes this to more Disney's handling of minority characters. And he brings up Kelly Marie Tran as well. Now, here's my problem. And I agree with the fact that both of those characters were pushed to the side. I think Kelly Marie Tran's Rose Tico was pushed to the side because of the very negative reaction to Last Jedi. But I think a lot of it has to do with the writing and development of the characters. If you have a well-written and well-developed character over a series of films, then you're not going to have backlash from the fans. They're going to accept that character. And that's the thing is, I liked Finn. Finn was probably my favorite character out of that series of films, outside of the ones that had returned. Although even then, some of them were barely recognizable as what they were. And he was definitely my favorite character in The Force Awakens. And I thought that because of the stuff at the end of that movie where he has the lightsaber and stuff, I thought maybe we could see him become a Jedi, even though I understand that Daisy Ridley was going to be, at the end of that movie, you understand that Daisy Ridley's kind of the Luke caricature. You figure, even if that's not the case, maybe, I always thought Finn would wind up becoming something like, a Mandalorian type of character, that he would find the Creed or something like that, and develop himself into a badass. And I thought that would have been a really great thing. Instead, they just repeated his exact same storyline from Force Awakens and Last Jedi, and then they basically barely used him in Rise of Skywalker. Well, I should say barely used him, but he was basically not developed a whole lot in Rise of Skywalker either. He was basically kind of the same character for 3 movies, whereas when we look at the original trilogy or even the sequel trilogy, a lot of those characters change over the course of 3 films. These characters almost stood still. They almost stayed exactly the same for 3 complete films, which I think is more of a problem on the writing perspective. Now, when he says the idea of characters being pushed to the side, I understand that perspective because of the advertising campaigns that were done for both Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. Maybe, I don't remember exactly if Force Awakens had this problem, but in terms of the posters and the visual advertising, and this is also true for, I believe, Black Panther as well, they put John Boyega's character kind of off to the side and kind of obscured him a bit so that he couldn't be seen as well on the posters for the Chinese releases, because Disney did not want an African-American character, or I shouldn't say African-American, but a black character, because John Boyega is English, on the front of the poster because they didn't believe that that would sell in China. They did the same thing with Black Panther, where they put the mask, the Black Panther mask, on Chadwick Boseman on the poster instead of having the mask off, which is what was on the American poster. And the poster that I believe also went out to Europe and several other major demographics. So I understand that. I understand that in Rise of Skywalker, Kelly Marie Tran's character was also pushed to the side. But again, I attribute more of that towards bad writing and bad character development. I don't necessarily attribute that to Disney being racist, I guess, or Disney being hesitant to put minority characters in starring roles, because they very much haven't. I mean, like I said, you can look at stuff like Black Panther. They're doing Shang-Chi, which has an Asian lead. They're doing stuff like Miss Marvel and everything else. So I don't think they really have a problem with putting people in those starring roles. Maybe not even back then either. Maybe a little bit in some aspects, but not a whole lot. But like I said, I think that the reason why those characters were pushed to the side is because they wanted to trump up Daisy Ridley for some insane reason. I have no idea why, because her character was extremely bland in that series. Finn was really the only kind of nuanced character, because Poe Dameron was basically just a copy and paste of like a Wedge Antilles type of character, or an Anakin, maybe like a Luke Skywalker without the ability, or maybe, actually no, probably not Luke Skywalker, but definitely kind of like a Wedge character that was made a little bit more important than what he actually was, or a little bit more important than what Wedge was in the original trilogy. And then Daisy Ridley is the Luke stand-in, and now you have John Boyega, who they really just didn't do anything with, which was kind of sad to me, because again, I really enjoyed his character in that first film, and I thought there were a lot of places that they could take him. And to be honest, half the reason why I went to see The Last Jedi was because I wanted to see what they did with his character, because I was really curious after the end of Force Awakens, when he gets the lightsaber wound to the back from Kylo Ren, about how that would work out. And obviously I was woefully let down by that film. And the piss poor writing job that was done on it. But the other thing is that he also mentions something about, people bring up, oh, he's the first black stormtrooper. No, he's not the first black stormtrooper. And a lot of people came out and said, why is there a black stormtrooper? Like, people didn't really understand that, because a lot of people thought that they were clones, just like the ones from the prequel trilogy. Now, a lot of people that I would say most people that know Star Wars know that stormtroopers were not clones, know that stormtroopers were enlisted people that were replaced, that were replacing clones that were getting too old in their lifespans. And they were all different races, aliens, humans, whatever, all different colors and classes and whatever. But they were not all clones. Some of them were clones, but most of them were not. Most of them were enlisted or drafted people. So it was very, very different in terms of how that worked. But I don't think a lot of casual Star Wars fans, people that are basically just familiar with the films, would know that, because we really don't see stormtroopers take off their helmets in any of the original trilogy. There's kind of these faceless bad guys that come in waves. And the only time we ever really see any kind of a trooper without a helmet on is in the prequel trilogy, and those are all clones of Jango Fett. So I think people just assumed that the stormtroopers were just a continuation of that, and they were all clones of Jango Fett, just maybe newer clones. And these newer stormtroopers were the same deal. But there have been plenty of different races and different factions of stormtroopers over the years. They are not the same thing as the clone troopers. That's why they are so woefully inaccurate with those blaster rifles, because they are not clone troopers. But like I said, I think that may have been some confusion on the audience's part in not knowing certain aspects of the lore that are not in the films. But aside from that, you're always going to get internet and Twitter trolls. Like, he's saying that Disney has to, learn how to stand up and protect their actors. It's like, okay, look, I get that a studio needs to, at some point, say, if people are actually being, legitimate assholes to the actors, the social media team from whatever studio that might be should probably step in and say, look, you can't be saying that to people or something like, something along those lines. Especially if people start breaking certain types of things out, and just coming after people for no reason. But Disney, in a lot of cases, just kind of made like a blanket term for Star Wars fans that did not like their particular brand of film. And then that led to the massive clash that happened over the sequel trilogy. So Disney's PR is not only to blame, Disney's advertising department and PR department are basically the ones that are to blame for John Boyega's lack of character, I should say lack of presence in some of the advertising campaigns, especially for Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. And the PR department is to blame for, I guess, not defending him enough or not backing him up, which again seems a little odd considering that everybody else was busy out kind of doing their own sort of advertising thing. Daisy Ridley went off social media for a while because she didn't want to deal with it, not necessarily because of Star Wars fans, because she just wanted to take a break from social media. Kelly Marie Tran did the same thing, but again, I don't disagree with his sentiment that the studio kind of pushed him and Tran and probably a few others to the side in place to bring characters like Daisy Ridley's Rey to the front. I don't disagree with that, but I do disagree with the sentiment that it had a lot to do with race. I don't think it had as much to do with race as John Boyega thinks it does. I think it had more to do with bad character writing and bad reception due to that character writing. But that just kind of highlights the importance of having good writing, good PR, and good advertising, because if you don't have those things, then the movie is probably either A, not going to be a success, or B, is only going to ride the coattails of the brand name that is plastered on it, which is basically what happened with the Star Wars films, because they progressively made less money as they went on. But that was just kind of my opinion on these statements. Like I said, I don't necessarily think the sentiment itself is wrong, but maybe the what John Boyega is identifying as the cause might be. But I want to know what you think. Have you read the statements? You've just heard me say them, but what are your thoughts on that? Did you like John Boyega in the Star Wars films? Did you not? Do you think that he was kind of done a disservice in terms of his character and the development of his character, like I do, or do you kind of not care? Do you think they suck? As usual, I like to know your opinions, so put them in the comments below. Hit the bell for notifications, hit the like button, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?